Bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here. It's an overreaction Wednesday, February 26th. Atlanta United has advanced to the quarterfinals of the Scotiabank CONCACAF Champions League for 2020 after a 3-0 win last night at Fifth Third Bank Stadium in Kennesaw, Georgia. Took a little bit of time in the first half to find the eventual breakthrough, and as Motagua opened up when they fell behind, things just got a little easier for Atlanta as the night went on. Pretty comfortable win. I'm sure there's reactions. I'm sure there will be some of the over variety. There will probably be some of the on par variety, and probably a few of the under reaction variety. It happens from time to time. Things get crazy around here occasionally. So tweet at us with the Overreaction Wednesday hashtag at Soccer Down Here and let us know what you're thinking on a Wednesday morning. If you did not hear how things went down at Fifth Third Bank Stadium last night, here's how things got started on...
Ronetti will cut it over to the left wing. Anton walks now. Dribbles back to the right, sends it down the middle, didn't get through to Joseph, knocked away by Castellanos. Kept alive Escobar, bounces it through to Pitti, ahead to Joseph, backheel back to Pitti, who dribbles into the box, a shot, score! El Pitti Martinez, que loco, que está! And Atlanta United finally gets the reward in the 40th minute.
1-0 in the 40th. It stayed that way at halftime, and then...
Sends this down the right wing where it's flicked into the center of the park by Lennon, and now Pitti sends it ahead to Joseph at the top of the 18, takes a touch, chips, scores! And Atlanta United is 30 minutes away from the quarterfinals.
And Mike Conti was correct, because... not too long after...
There's Parker now coming off the halfway line. Atlanta United trying to ice it down the middle for Joseph at the... oh, and coming off this line is Rozier to knock down Joseph. Play continues. Pitti at the edge of the 6. Shot! Score! Rozier came off his line to play Joseph. He knocked him down. The referee plays advantage, and it's a goal for Pitti to send Atlanta United through to the quarterfinals.
Pitti Martinez, Joseph Martinez, huge starts to the season with 2 goals and 2 assists each. How about these 5 stripes, John Nelson?
Very, very cool to see it last night. It was, I'm trying to figure out the right adjective, and other than it being incredibly entertaining and seeing just the speed that this team has, and still only a handful of weeks in when it comes to play, but there's a lot of promise there with connections and things like that. But for them to look like this after only a couple of weeks, it's going to be fun to see it continue to evolve, both in MLS starting this weekend against Nashville and in the next round of CONCACAF Champions League. It was a fun watch, and with the speed, and for me, I don't know if this is my chicken or the egg argument, and I don't know if it was the speed that created a lot of the open space that gave Atlanta United the chance to create, or because of the open space, you saw the speed. So it was great to see it last night, and dominating performance. It was a controlling performance, I think is probably the better word, but good to see it. Great crowd at the Fraction last night, and Atlanta United moves on.
All right, let's get into a couple things off the top. Motagua came in very defensive. It was pretty much a 5-4-1 to start. Yes, they conceded a lot of space. That's a different conversation. It's honestly a different conversation than just the speed element, because they're sitting deep. It's the speed in tight spaces, which is a different kind of speed. The speed of moving the ball and circulating the ball, again, a different kind of speed. I think a lot of times in the past, people associated Atlanta United with vertical speed. Miguel Almiron, that's what he had. This team plays fast in a different way. I mean, I think the word fast is going to take on a lot of different meanings when it's used to describe Atlanta United this season. And you have to be kind of clear in explaining which version we're talking about. Because in a perfect world, this team will adjust fast to if a team's sitting deep, if a team's putting pressure on them. They'll make those adjustments fast. They will move the ball fast. They will actually get vertical fast, which they can do. They will have fast players on the wings. They will, I think, take control of a game fast. There's lots of different fast that is going to be used with this team. And it's not all the same thing. Motagua took away the vertical element for the most part last night because they sat deeper and they put a lot of numbers behind the ball. But that first goal is a prime example of two elements of fast. The first goal for Atlanta United, they strung together, I don't know, I want to say about 15, 20 passes in possession as they forced Motagua deeper and deeper and deeper. And they got 9 guys behind the ball. 9 players. It was only Morera up top and 9 guys behind the ball in a line of 5 and a line of 4. No space to work in. So what did Atlanta United do then? They actually went backwards, which I know scares some people for some reason, but this is why you have to do it. Because when a team gets 9 behind the ball, if you just run into 2 blocks of 5 and 4, you're asking for trouble. But what you do is what Atlanta United did in that sequence. And if you have that game DVR'd, if you have access to Fox Sports Go and you can go back and watch it, go to that sequence on the goal, go back about 2 minutes. And you see the possession, and they get to a point where they get those lines deep, and then they come back and they circulate the ball from side to side. What does that do? 2 things. It pulls Motagua apart and creates space, but it also pulls them out a little bit and separates the lines vertically. It separates the lines horizontally. So when the next phase started, and it was Walks trying to play an entry pass into a tight spot, it's deflected away. Motagua's trying to break out. They have nobody to break out with, so numbers are trying to compensate to get up and help Morera. Franco Escobar, fast, closes it down, and then it's a quick 1-2 with Pitti and Joseph. So there's different elements of fast on that first goal. It's fast decision-making on circulating the ball. It's fast pressing after you lose possession, and then it is fast combination play through the middle and you get the goal. That's what Atlanta United can do to teams this year. You're going to be able to do it through possession sometimes. You're also going to be able to do it through that quick recovery of possession when you lose it sometimes. That is the hallmark of what this team wants to be. That first goal, it's not just the combination play between Pitti and Joseph. It's the possession before that, and honestly, it's the turnover. Because they immediately won it back, and what happens when the ball turns over? Good teams are fast in how they transition. Teams that are not quite as technical or not used to playing at that speed, like Motagua, they're not able to quickly transition from defense, line of 5, line of 4, one up top on an island. They're not able to transition quickly and get out in an organized way. So when they try to, ball turns over, then they're completely unbalanced, and it's 1-2, boom, goal. Possession can create that part too. That's what has to be understood here. It was a great match. I think it was a very organized, very professional performance from Atlanta United. I thought it was dynamic in a lot of phases of play. Are they hitting on all cylinders yet? No, they're not, and they can't be expected to. It's unfair to expect them to be in midseason form in game number 2 competitively. But you're seeing the building blocks. And I think people are starting to see the foundational elements of how this team is going to play this year. It's pretty exciting. I think it is. I hope others find it exciting. I think it's going to be very successful. And I think it showed last night against lesser competition in Motagua. Yes, that is 100% the case. Now you get to go to Nashville, a team that on paper you have more talent. You're coming off of a game on Tuesday. This is going to be their first competitive game in front of their crowd. It's going to be kind of a wild, emotional night for Nashville. How they handle that will be a big question. But you start to look ahead in CONCACAF, and yeah, there's a big team in Mexico City that is looming, and they play tonight. They play Comunicaciones of Guatemala at the Estadio Azteca. Club America 1-1, same position that Atlanta United was in coming into the home leg. They should be able to take care of business. They have been there before. They have done it before. And that will be the first big test for Atlanta United in 2020. You're not going to be in midseason form by then, but can you be even better than you have been so far? You would hope so. And you should have some reinforcements along the way by that point as well.
Yeah, right now it's about the progression and how they continue to get acquainted with each other in an athletic sense on the pitch at practice, and applying these lessons and applying what happened last night and continuing to improve going forward. Looking forward to keeping an eye on all the matches tonight in CONCACAF and seeing who that opponent is. I know that we're, putting carts before horses to a certain degree because of expectations and just level of team. But it's going to be a fun one tonight, and having what we saw last night. I mean, you saw instances of just, we mentioned speed and doing things fast and in a bunch of different ways. And you see guys like Jake Mulroney chasing after a ball and, quickly to try to regain possession, and Barco going in between guys to try to create things offensively. So the notion of fast taking different forms, whether it's offense or defense or how you're working the ball around and things like that. It's just it's a lot of fun to watch so far from what we've been able to see.
All right, I know we've got a lot of tweets on the timeline. Overreaction Wednesday is your hashtag. At Soccer Down Here is your destination. What do we have so far, John?
First one comes from Daniel Price, and since you and he agreed on the score prediction, he wants to know how he gets in on the Bailey Cup.
We can't have everybody in on the Bailey Cup, y'all. It's people who are on air on SDH, and the listeners have a combined vote. That's how it goes. You know this, John.
Mm-hmm. Just wanted to put it
why
out
didn't
there.
you tell Daniel this?
What?
Daniel had a good prediction. There were others who had 3-0. I'm sure that Daniel and I were not the only ones who picked 3-0, but
I did not.
Well, no, we know that, because what did you pick? 2-1 like you always do?
No, I had 3-1 actually.
Well, okay, it's 2-1 or 3-1. That's what you pick every time. I don't think you've ever picked a clean sheet.
Early indications and early intel for the weekend are leaning in that direction.
Oh, now you're just trying to be different. I see how it is.
Yes. Dustin Branham. Anyone else see Luis Fernando sauce that guy, then stare at him afterwards? Hashtag
there was a
action
bit of a stare down.
Hashtag
Yes.
unite and conquer.
Yeah, there was a bit of a stare down from Luis Fernando. He had a couple saucings in that one sequence. Luis was very, very good.
Same guy, wasn't he?
No. Luis was very, very good. He did the defensive side of that job as well. And wing back is something that we saw him used in a few times with Atlanta United too last season, but not often. It's going to be an area that right now he can get on the field and potentially provide depth in. And he's a player that when we've talked about Atlanta United's depth, he really hasn't factored in as much. Now he's debuted with the first team. He's put in a good shift. Can he give you minutes in these games coming up where you do have to start thinking about quarterfinals of CONCACAF, and you have to start thinking about workload and where players are physically? Can he give you 10 minutes here, 20 minutes here? Could he give you a start and get you to 60 minutes against Nashville or Cincinnati? That's the question. I think he's opened the door to that question now with his performance. It was a very good one last night. Not just on the ball, not just the highlight reel, but his overall performance in that, cameo role. But I think next time he's maybe in line to see more minutes.
Andy Hollums has a thought. He says he needs an action at the fraction scarf useful for all the CCL Open Cup and Twos matches.
I don't think there's going to be a scarf, but there very, very, very well could be a T-shirt if things fall into place, and hopefully there will be a T-shirt ahead of the next leg of CONCACAF, which will be at Fifth Third Bank Stadium, and I know that's a big talking point. I think it was Turner Kirby on Twitter last night who made a very good point. Atlanta United was announced as a club in April of 2014. I don't remember what the CONCACAF scheduling was then, but I'm sure that CONCACAF Champions League was not on their horizon in November of 2014 when the Final Four was announced. This Final Four and the time frame for it of preparing the stadium, it happened a full 2 years before Atlanta United played a match. So I know this isn't ideal. This is not what you want. But these are the types of things that you build a building like Mercedes-Benz Stadium for. And, yeah, you have to have a trade-off at some points. Atlanta United barely existed and was not thinking about Champions League in its first few months of existence when the Final Four was booked. You didn't know what the Champions League schedule would be because it's changed. I mean, last year, and this was well after this event was booked, last year, remember, you went from a Thursday night game in Kennesaw against Herediano to a Sunday night season opener in D.C. to a Wednesday night game in Monterey. So, if you were on last year's calendar with CONCACAF, I think you would have been okay in the time frame. Because the first leg of the quarterfinals would be next week. The second leg would be in 2 weeks, and I think you would be okay to do that at the Benz. Well, CONCACAF has changed it, which CONCACAF does, and things evolve, and this is what happens. Here's the flip side of this, and this is something that I thought about a lot driving home. The United States started scheduling meaningful games with Mexico in Columbus, Ohio. Not because Columbus is a great tourist destination, not because the stadium was the greatest in the country, but because it was smaller, because it was intense, and because they could better control ticket allotments. In a larger venue, people can get their hands on tickets, right? You're going to have to be a much easier situation if you are, let's say, Club America advances. If you are a Club America fan who lives anywhere in the Southeast, which there are quite a few, you would be able to get tickets at Mercedes-Benz because there'd be more tickets on the market. What do we always talk about when it comes down to a first-team match at Fifth Third Bank Stadium? It's just under 10,000 seats. There are 36,000-plus season ticket holders. Do the math. Tickets don't go out to the public for these big games. This one is definitely not going to go out to the public. It will be all season ticket holders who will buy these, with the exception of the minimum allotment that has to go to Club America based off the size of the stadium. I think it's going to end up being around 500 that Club America will sell, distribute, however they handle it with their supporters. And that's it. I don't think you're going to see nearly as many Club America fans in the building if that's the matchup. At Mercedes-Benz Stadium, would it look exactly like the Campeones Cup did? No, I don't think so, because I don't think people knew what to expect with that one going in, and I know a lot of people who opted not to go. That's not going to be the case here. Season ticket holders will have first crack at these tickets. If a bunch of tickets end up with Club America supporters, well, they're coming from Atlanta United season ticket holders. And there are Atlanta United season ticket holders who are Club America fans as well. Let's not get it twisted. But this should be an overwhelming, home, intense Atlanta crowd at Fifth Third Bank Stadium. Do you wish it could be at a bigger venue so everybody who wanted to go could go? Yes. But this will give the team the better home field advantage in a guaranteed perspective in terms of percentage of Atlanta fans in the building. It's the best you can do. It is the best you can do with the situation when the Final Four is booked for Atlanta in November of 2014, and you play your first game in March of 2017, and you play your first CONCACAF match in February of 2019. These are the things that happen when events get booked that far out, and the Final Four is an event that is big enough to get booked that far out.
That was going to be my point in this discussion whenever it came up, was that it was going to be, yes, no matter how disappointing it is for next round to be at fifth, third, it's going to be that intense home field advantage that you're looking for in a competition of this magnitude. And hearing the crowd last night, I think it was a little over 8,400 that were there last night. Amplify that to the next round with Club America coming to town. And really that kind of home field advantage, that home crowd advantage, and the 17s having them there, that for me, it's going to be special whomever shows up for the next round. But if it is Club America, the fact that you can have 8,000 of the 8,500 be screaming 17s, I think that's huge in this environment.
Yeah, it's exactly what the U.S. did with playing Mexico and Columbus, just on an even smaller scale, so the percentage is going to be even more intense. Last night was loud. Last night was very intense. Amplify that because it's Club America that's involved, and that's what you're going to get for the quarterfinal. If Club America gets by Comunicaciones tonight, they should. There's no guarantees in the competition, especially when the manager of Comunicaciones, Mauricio Tapia, is known as El Mago, the magician. Can he pull out some magic tonight at the Estadio Azteca? Probably not, but I would be very happy if he did.
Amy Anna Marie this morning. Seems to me a lot of FDB haters are eating crow. Amazing what you can do with time to install your system and a few new additions. Atlanta United is anything in all caps but boring. Give me all the PB&J this season and then a cup. Hashtag Overreaction Wednesday.
I didn't understand it at the beginning. I think there's a strange expectation for a team to be at its best on day one. Wasn't the case last year. It's not the case now. Is it better now? Yeah, because this team under Frank de Boer, and yes, there are some different faces, played, about 50 games now. So there's a better expectation of what you want, and you also come into this season with a baseline. You didn't have that last year. Last year, there was a lot of things. Honestly, last year, the effects of the changes, the off-season changes, I think they were bigger last year than they are right now. Because you lost Tata Martino, so you had a different personality calling the shots from the touchline in Frank de Boer. That takes time to adjust to. You also lost Miguel Almiron, who your entire team and style of play was based on. And you brought in a player in Pity Martinez who, needed a break. I think it showed. I mean, he talked about it last night a little bit. It was hard for him early on here last year. Now he feels completely different. He looks different. It looks like a different player in that number 10 shirt because he's comfortable, because he's rested, because he's got that focus. And I think there's a great understanding between him, Frank de Boer, of who each other is and what they can do and what what each one wants out of this. And I think they're in a really good spot. So I don't know. I guess there's just always a rush to judgment. And I've said it many, many times. I think if Frank de Boer was named Steve Jones and had not had the Crystal Palace, not even the Inter thing, because I think anybody citing that is pulling something out of an English article. I think if Frank de Boer had not had the Crystal Palace moment, because it was basically just a moment, and hadn't had some of the awful knee-jerk things said about him in the English media, those things wouldn't have happened last year. I don't think they would have. I think it was a lot of reaction to that, and as I've said many times, Atlanta United has greater ambitions and a higher expectation than to be the American Crystal Palace.
Unite Shop Rise this morning. Wasn't sure if this got answered during stoppage time, but Joseph's 10 away from 100 goals. Is there a record he could break when he does? And then Unite Shop also had thoughts on Luis Fernando that we talked about a little earlier. Great win in all caps with an exclamation point.
There's not a record when he gets to 100. I'd have to. That's in all competitions. I'd have to look at guys like Wondolowski, guys like Bradley Wright Phillips, others in this league at their goals in all competitions. I mean, there's guys who've scored more MLS goals. So goals with an MLS club, no, I mean, there's guys who have more MLS goals. It would just be a very cool mark. And it's one that, the way the season's starting, it might happen fairly quickly because Joseph, as much as Pity Martinez, Joseph Martinez is also on fire to start this thing. Last night, Joseph led the team in chances created with 5. That's the deadly element of this attacking trio. And last night, I think you saw how much more effective it can be when Jake Mulroney, when Brooks Lennon, when the wingbacks get up to help that attacking trio, because then you turn it into defending with 5 and attacking with 5. And it's 5 spread out, but with depth of movement when Barco and Pitti drop in. It's not just going to be one player doing one thing. Joseph is going to drop in, and he's going to be a playmaker at times. Pitti's going to move forward, and he's going to score goals at times. Barco's going to do both. I think when you start to get Lennon and Mulroney or whoever the wingbacks are on a given day even more incorporated into it, it gets more diverse, and it gets even better. But Joseph, I think we'll see that 100th goal in an Atlanta United shirt in all competitions fairly soon. I don't know, early to mid-April. That's probably what you're shooting for. But he could have 6 games between now and the March international break. In league play, Nashville, Cincinnati, Sporting Kansas City, Chicago, and then the 2 CONCACAF Champions League quarterfinals. 10 goals in 6 games is a lot, but this is Joseph Martinez we're talking about.
Jarrett Smith is listening in this morning. He says that Wondolowski has 167 in all comps by comparison.
Okay, and that's I'm guessing according to Transfermarkt, which is usually pretty good. I would double check it, and I will try to do so here at some point so we can get a basis for comparison. But Transfermarkt is usually pretty good with breaking out all the different competitions and on point with it.
Drew Gano this morning. It's obvious that Atlanta United is way more organized defensively so far this year, and the players, even all the new ones, seem much more at ease in the system as expected. I'm beginning to expect great things from the Five Stripes this year. Hashtag Overreaction Wednesday.
That's where you have to give Frank de Boer a ton of credit, because being better defensively was a goal from day 2 of Tata Martino. Because, Tata Martino is not a reckless manager. He was always seen as a more pragmatic version of the Marcelo Bielsa camp. And pragmatic's not always defensive, don't get me wrong. Pragmatic is to do whatever the situation calls for. But you want to be balanced. You want to have control. And these are things Tata Martino talked about going into 2018. 2019, when Frank de Boer talked about it, it became a thing, and it felt weird. Now, again, you're 50 games in with Frank de Boer, and you've been able, so far in this 2020 calendar year, we'll include the last couple preseason games, we'll include these 2 competitive games, you have fielded different defensive setups, you have fielded different defensive personnel, every match since Birmingham, and you have, with the first team, with your first choice guys, we're going to exclude the second half of the Birmingham match because you were playing a draft pick who is not signed yet in Patrick Nielsen, you were playing Lawrence Wyke, who's on an Atlanta United 2 contract currently, and George Campbell to start it before all the changes happened. First half against Birmingham, you didn't concede a goal. 90 minutes against Leones Negros, you didn't concede a goal. 90 minutes in Honduras, you conceded 1 goal. 90 minutes last night, you didn't concede a goal. You want to include the second half in Birmingham for to be a complete thing here? Okay, fine. 2 goals, 1 was a penalty, and 1 was about 10 yards offside. Maybe exaggerating a little bit. It might have been 8, but it really felt like it was way offside. So that's pretty good with different personnel and different shapes. That's getting the ideas of the way that this team is designed to play. It's getting that across to the group and getting it across to the point that you can do it with Miles Robinson. You can do it without Miles Robinson. And those are 2 different looks. I mean, Fernando Meza playing centrally is a very different situation than Miles Robinson playing there. Meza is not that fast. Meza is not the guy who's going to cover everything with his range. That's why he sat deeper at times yesterday, because he's not as fast. But you still made it work. Anton Walkes has played as a center back in a 4, as a center back in a 3, as a left wing back. He's been really, really good all over. Really good in all those positions. Meza is just a calming influence that I love to see with this group. Franco Escobar is Franco Escobar. He is hitting the ground running in 2020. It's been really, really good to see. And if you have that confidence, that security defensively, you can commit more numbers forward. Those wingbacks can take more chances. One of the central midfielders can take some chances going forward. And you're attacking 3 up front, they can focus on the attack.
Alex this morning has a PT with back-to-back games with high passing accuracy for his hashtag Overreaction Wednesday. Hashtag Nagby replacement plus finishing and artistry. Also, what would it have taken for anyone to get a card?
You know, I'm good that there wasn't a bunch of cards. When you're dealing with yellow card accumulation at 2, I don't want referees in this competition to throw a bunch of cards. It's tough at times when you get into a persistent infringement perspective, but last night I don't think that really got there. I mean, at one point, midway through the second half, when I think Motagua started to get frustrated and the fouls piled up a bit, I looked at the stats at that point, and they'd only committed 5 fouls by then. So you weren't really in that ballpark yet. Throwing cards for them, it didn't matter. I think the referee did a really good job. And in the first half, it was a little hard to get a read on him at times. He wanted to let the game play. He tried to let it go. Then he tried to rein it in. I think he adjusted pretty well. There were no major issues. Little things about was it a foul, was it not a foul. Every referee is going to have that. No referee calls a 100% perfect game. And they'll tell you that. I'm not trying to be overly critical of our referee friends. But you want to get out of a game where you didn't affect the outcome. You didn't have any calls that changed anything major. And Keylor Herrera did that last night. He didn't have to throw cards because I think he managed the game with his personality. And that's a key. When you have to go to cards, you're running out of options. And sometimes it happens. And sometimes the players force you into that. Don't get me wrong. There's times where people get upset, like the Portugal-Netherlands game in 2006, that I think every player on the field and on the bench and one's on the roster and kids on the U20 team got a yellow card in that game. But that game was one where everybody needed to get a yellow card because they're running around kicking everybody and being salty about it. So the referee did what that game called for. In a game where you don't have to do that, I'm cool with keeping the cards in the pocket. I'm good with it. And it never got out of hand last night. Herrera did a good job where you can talk to people and manage it. You're going to have more leeway to manage a game and not have a big effect on it. Where you can't or you won't and you just throw cards, well, you can back yourself into a corner. Because then you get into that situation that we've seen so many times where a second yellow that's not a major incident results in a red and has a massive effect on a match. So I like when a referee does what Herrera did. He did it effectively. There's a big difference in the way that Latin referees manage games versus American referees. I think last night in that game, the way it went, you would have seen cards quicker in an MLS match because of the way referees are instructed. They're not allowed to just permit dissent. Anytime there's dissent, it's like, no, you can't talk to me. Card. I think last night Herrera let people talk to him. How many times was somebody yelling at him all upset about something and he was smiling? Gave him kind of a shrug, kind of just gave him a smile, said something, we moved on. I'll take that. I'll take that every time when they can manage the game that way. He didn't have to go to the cards, and that was ultimately good for Atlanta United because Escobar, Joseph, on a yellow card, next one in the competition. They're going to miss the next match on accumulation. I'll take refs that aren't throwing cards all day right now.
Sean Vergara, on following up on that, he says, would it have been a red on the Joseph collision had PT not scored?
No, I don't think so. It wouldn't have been dog-so because there were defenders there. It would have been a free kick on the edge of the box because I think the foul happened outside. I wouldn't have given a red. I mean, it wasn't. He wasn't trying to hit Joseph. He was trying to play the ball. It was reckless from him, and him not being the last player, it didn't feel like a red to me. And the fact that he didn't even come back to give any kind of a card, which he could have, would tell you that he wasn't thinking red either. If he had come back and given a yellow, then maybe you would have seen it, but Joseph was smart. Joseph knew that the contact was coming. He kind of turned into it a little bit. They collide, and then it's a great decision to play advantage. Because if you go back and look, Herrera has the whistle in his mouth. He is about to blow the whistle and stop the play, and he spots Pitti coming off of his left shoulder out of the corner of his eye, and he lets it play out. That's really good refereeing, and I don't think it would have been a red, no.
Daniel, along those same lines, says he was so worried there for a second when Escobar was going to get a card for insubordination. He was already on a yellow, and I would have been so pissed.
Well, that's the one. He probably should have gotten a yellow. And I think in an MLS game, he definitely would have gotten a yellow. So that's the one where I'm very happy with this referee's performance because he would have been in his rights to give a yellow there. Those are the ones that Franco has to manage better. There's no reason where that match was at that stage on a yellow card, knowing one more you're going to miss. There's no reason to get that animated. He has to know that he can't. If he needs to yell at Eric Remedi, hey, you go yell at the referee for me. Okay, fine. But he can't do that. He's got to manage that better. But I'll ask you to notice one more thing that happened with that. Who came all the way back, getting in front of the referee, hands behind his back, drawing the attention to him instead of Franco? Pity Martinez. Again, understanding the situation and saying, no, I'm not going to let my guy get a second yellow card here. Hey, if I have to eat a yellow, I'll eat a yellow because I can eat one right now. Deal with me. It's good work from Pitti, but Franco's got to manage those emotions better in those moments. That would have been a completely unnecessary yellow.
Ricky Ricardo this morning seems to remember a lot of freaking out about FDB's arrival, causing our Latin American pipeline to dry up. Well, after getting our first Brazilian from a Brazilian club, our first Uruguayan, and potentially our first Mexican international from a Liga MX Power, I would say the pipeline's running as efficient as ever. Hashtag Somos Atlanta. Hashtag On Par Reaction Wednesday.
Yeah, I have no idea where the pipeline concerns came from. And honestly, it's a little sad that the conclusion would be jumped to that a Dutch manager would not want South American players. I don't know why somebody would think that. There was nothing said to lead you to believe that. And if you knew about Ajax and the club that Frank de Boer played at and managed at, they have had South American players quite often. There was one when Frank started his managerial career there that you've probably heard of in Luis Suarez. There's been plenty of others. I think the conclusion that was jumped to there was a very wild and unfounded thing to put out there. And I don't know where it started, and it was a real shame that it got some legs. You're going to go get talent, period. You're going to go get talent with this team. And where is the market right now to go get talent at a good price? It's in South America. For Major League Soccer, it's in South America. And when you're able to go get a player like Manuel Castro on loan, bring him in, see if he's a fit from a club like Estudiantes. He had a great season in Uruguay that earned him the move to Estudiantes. It's been a little bit slower in Argentina. Maybe this change of scenery will do him good. When you go get a Mateus Satu from Brazil with experience in Copa Libertadores, but also extensive experience in the Brazilian leagues, you're going to get another player at a good price tag. You've went out and you've added players that fit. And now the latest rumor, and Tudeyene was blasting this out yesterday, after initially it started with a few clubs that were linked to Jurgen Damm of Tigres. Now it's sounding like, according to Tudeyene, it's Atlanta United who's going to bring him in the summer. And we'll go back to the buzzword of the day off the top, fast. Well, that's what Jurgen Damm is known for, as being one of the fastest players in the world. I think somebody said he's the fastest, and I don't know. I must have missed the ABC Superstars event where they got the fastest players in the world and had a sprint. I haven't seen that. But he's up there, and he's a player who also needs a change of scenery. I think he was expected to go to Europe before now, and he was also linked with a move to Europe, I think, in the summer. But it looks like, and this is all according to Tudeyene, this is all rumor and innuendo, that he could be headed to Atlanta. And then you're adding another player who is sprint, speed, fast. You're going to go find players, period. I don't get hung up on where they're coming from. But the idea that you would now not go to South America because you have a Dutch manager, I don't know why people would jump to that conclusion, and it's kind of sad that got legs, because it didn't make any sense when it started.
ATL UTD fan number 1, my reaction is wow! Exclamation point. I'm excited to see what this season has to bring, and we aren't even 100% healthy or have a full contingent. PB&J are going to be a fun watch. See y'all in Nashville. # on par reaction.
Nashville's going to be fun. I think this season's going to be fun. Are there going to be bumpy spots? I mean, of course there are. It's a season. You're never going to be... It's never a straight line. Even for a team like Liverpool this season, where they have lost nothing in league play. They only have the one loss to Atletico Madrid in Europe. Is that correct? I don't remember their group stage numbers. I don't remember if they went undefeated there. Anyway, Liverpool and their strength. That's incredibly rare. They've also had some bumpy patches where they've found ways to get draws and wins, but that's incredibly rare. So as good as things are right now, is there going to be a stretch? Are they going to have some injuries? Are you going to have some international absences? Are you going to have a dip in form? Yeah. You're constantly progressing in a season. You never want to plateau. You always want to find ways to get incrementally better. So I'm excited for the ride that 2020 is going to be, because I think we're going to see some really cool things along the way, and I think this is a team that is in a good spot now, but still has a lot of room to grow and get even better and even more controlling of matches and even more just intimidating to opponents.
Nathan Pugh's on par reaction is Vamos Comunicaciones FC, and then discussing the rumor that we talked about a second ago. Also, woo, Dom, we're going to win everything. And that's his # overreaction Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm all in for Comunicaciones. Look, a matchup with Club America would be a lot of fun and a lot of talk, and everybody would win if you're CONCACAF, if you're Liga MX, if you're MLS in terms of the hype. I don't care about the hype. This trophy is what you want, and it's going to be an easier road if Comunicaciones pulls the upset. So I will be pulling for Comunicaciones tonight as much as I possibly can. Am I expecting them to get through? No, I'm not. I'm not. They were quite a surprise to get the 1-1. You know, this is a squad that is in first place in the Liga Nacional in Guatemala, 4 points up on Municipal. This is a team that was the third place finisher in the Apertura, 3rd out of 12. And this is a team that was knocked out in the quarterfinals of the CONCACAF League in 2019 by Olimpia. It's a very old team. You look at the key players for Comunicaciones. Goalkeeper, Jose Calderon, veteran Panamanian at 34. All right, that's fine. He's a goalkeeper, 34. You'll take that. Top forward, Agustin Herrera, Mexican forward, 34. Led the team in scoring in the Apertura with 12. He had played with a different club, returned to the club. He mostly played in the Mexican second division. Backline, led by a former Chivas USA center back in Michael Umania, 37 years old. 50 matches for Chivas USA in 2010 and 2011. It's a lot of minutes for guys on the other side of 30. Freddie Thompson, midfielder, almost 2,000 minutes in the Apertura and Clausura, 37 years old. It's an old team. So, a couple things. Can they go into the Estadio Azteca and not be shocked? Yeah. Yeah, you've got veterans who've been around the block. They've probably played there either in previous iterations of the Champions League. They've probably played there with their national teams. So they're not going to come in and be freaked out by playing at the Estadio Azteca, but can they keep up? That's going to be the question. They should not. Club America should control this quickly. What will be interesting is last night, first goal came in the 40th minute for Atlanta. It never felt too much like the crowd was getting on edge because I think you could feel that goal coming for a while before it happened. The crowd in Mexico City with Club America, if they don't get a goal in the first 30, will they turn?
Yeah.
Will they start to put pressure and whistle at their team? They're more prone to do it. Is that going to have a negative effect? I don't think it's ultimately going to matter, but that's something to watch for. If you're Comunicaciones, you go into the Azteca tonight, you want to win every 15-minute segment. You're breaking it down that small. You want to win every 15 minutes and keep it moving and keep it moving. Now, look, you've got to go find a goal. The question is going to be, do you approach it like Motagua did? I think they were too defensive. I think coming out in a 5-4-1 was too much. I think they should have played one of their forwards up top if they were healthy, and even if they weren't, I would have probably brought out Pena, who was on the bench, or Walter Martinez to pair with Morera. Morera's not good as a number 9 by himself. He's a guy who thrives off of running off of somebody else. When he's the only guy up there, he's not as effective. I think they still could have been defensive, looked to counter in their 4-4-2, and had one more guy up top with Morera when they did counter. Last night, I think Diego Vasquez was a little more defensive than Motagua needed to be. What about Comunicaciones tonight? Are they going to be ultra defensive and try to hit on the counter? Are they going to play their game and just be a little more conservative in it? We'll have to see. Injuries could have affected Motagua with that, though, because Rubilio Castillo was not 100%. He had knee inflammation, talked about it on Sunday. He came off the bench. I don't know if there was an injury with Gonzalo Klusener. If there was, I didn't see it reported. He was not effective last night at all, but his presence with Morera, I think, would have made them more of a threat on the counter than what they did. I was a little surprised they went 5-4-1. When the lineup came out, and they put theirs out pretty early. When it came out, I was surprised to see it.
For the record, courtesy of our friends at Bet365, looking at those who are rooting for Comunicaciones, Club America is a minus 600. Comunicaciones is a plus 1,200. To qualify, Club America is at minus 1,200. Comunicaciones is at plus 700. And the over-under, if the number is 2.5, the over is minus 211 this evening.
Whew. Don't put any juice boxes on any of that. Just don't do it. Value your juice boxes, people.
Yep. And we have the juice boxes for the others, but we'll get into that later. Santa United is in this morning. Since everyone loves to play X is the replacement for, in quotation marks. With all those moves last night, just thinking Barco may be that Nagbe replacement everyone wants, and I'm 100% here for, you can already hear it, Longshoe say they aren't the same player, but hashtag Wildpass Wednesday.
They're not the same player. They're just not. It's let me take this a step further. So you want to talk about every player being a replacement for somebody else. So that means your team is always going to look the same, right? Never change. It's just going to be, okay, I'm replacing Steve with Johnny, and I'm replacing Billy with Bob, and they're going to do the exact same thing that the previous player did. So then nothing changes in the way your team plays. It's impossible, first off. And it doesn't lead you to grow and get better because you're just trying to maintain. You shouldn't want that. Nagbe's a great player, and the love for Darlington Nagbe has increased since that trade happened because there were a lot of people who really appreciated Darlington Nagbe while he was here, but he's also a player that you don't always notice in matches because he does so much that is under the radar. You can replace those things. You can find other ways to get those elements. Atlanta United's doing that. So whether it's Barco at times dribbling in tight spaces, Satu will be a player who will be able to get you out of tight spots. Whether it's Emerson Heineman dropping in and doing that, whether it's Eric Remedi doing that at times, Pity Martinez dropping deep to help you do that. You're doing it in different ways. It's not a like for like. Just like Fernando Meza is not a like for Leandro Gonzalez Perez or for Michael Parkhurst. He's Fernando Meza. I was driving home last night and I was listening to Volume on Sirius XM FC. It's the music talk channel, which is really interesting sometimes when they have some shows on where they're talking to musicians. And they had Nuno Betancourt, who from Extreme and More Than Words and that era. Well, he's a great guitar player, first off. I think everybody thinks of him from More Than Words, and you don't get a sense of who Nuno Betancourt really is. Well, he was talking about, I think he was trying to emulate Eddie Van Halen. Kind of a tough one to emulate, right, as a guitar player. Not really easy to do that. So he talked about how he learned the techniques and he was doing the exact same things and he thought he had it down. He practiced and practiced and practiced, and he was doing things from a technique standpoint that were different than what he normally did because he's trying to emulate somebody else. Then he went to the studio, he recorded, he got into the groove, recorded the song, went back and listened to it, and he's like, it sounds like me. It doesn't sound like Eddie Van Halen. It sounds like me. Are there certain things that are a little different? Yeah, but it sounds like me. Like, you are who you are. Ezequiel Barco brings things to the table that Darlington Nagbe can't. Just like Emerson Heineman does, just like Eric Remedi does, just like Pity Martinez does, just like Mateo Satu does. Darlington Nagbe brings things to the table that those players can't. He's not Mateo Satu. He's Darlington Nagbe. But just because he's not here doesn't mean that Mateo Satu, Emerson Heineman, Ezequiel Barco, Pity Martinez, when they drop into those roles, can't do elements of what he did, can't do things that he did, but no, they're not Darlington Nagbe. And I don't want them to try to be. I want them to be themselves. They need to play their game. That's why they were brought here. It's not about a like-for-like replacement. It's about the overall group and how it functions. And when changes happen, you have to look to grow. You have to look to evolve. Because if you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, eventually you're going to get found out and you're not going to be as effective.
I guess we'll wrap up hour number 1 with Hal Sutton's comment this morning. Short and to the point, 5 words, 2 exclamation points. Hyndman played like a champ.
He did. He was very good. Did the defensive side, did the attacking side, flared out to the right at times to create overloads. It was really, really strong from Emerson Hyndman last night. It was really, really strong from everybody. I think Jake Mulroney struggled a little in the first half on the defensive side. He had a great second half. That's the only quibble that I really had at all last night. It was a great performance on the whole from Atlanta United, and they go through. They took care of business. They go through 3-0, 4-1 on aggregate, and they are awaiting either Club America or Comunicaciones in the quarterfinals. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to get Mike Conti from 92.9 The Game on the line, get his reflections as we look back at last night, and also maybe look ahead a little bit to this weekend in Nashville, a home opener with Cincinnati, and then CONCACAF Champions League quarterfinals. The same spot Atlanta got to last time. They don't want their Champions League run to end here in 2020. We'll talk about all of that right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here, February 26th. It's an overreaction Wednesday. Might be a couple more overreaction Wednesdays next month. We'll see where the scheduling falls for Atlanta United in the quarterfinals of the CONCACAF Champions League. But we got other business to attend to, and it starts in Major League Soccer this week. Mike Conti, we have a very busy next few days on our hands, don't we?
That's okay. I like this kind of busy because it means we're really in the full swing of the season. And if Atlanta United plays as well as they played last night, I think we're going to have a lot of fun doing Overreaction Wednesdays and, Overreaction Mondays and all of that because I can't really think of a single negative
nitpick to have about last night's performance. Atlanta United played really, really well, and I think we're in store for a fun weekend.
I was going to ask you which hashtag you wanted to address coming out of the blocks this morning, the on-par reaction, the overreaction, or the under-par reaction. Which hashtag would you like to address first, sir?
Hashtag birdie or eagle. Let's go under par.
Okay, so what is your under-par reaction from last night?
As far, well, moderator, can you restate the question a different way? Do you mean it's something that I was not expecting, or something I was disappointed in, or something that where Atlanta United exceeded my expectations?
Yeah, well, so let's go with exceeding expectations as the idea of it being an under par reaction.
Got it. Didn't want to sound like the Democrats last night in that debate when they all started yelling at each other.
Or the previous one, yes.
Luis Fernando, man, I'll tell you what. I mean, very limited sample size and probably running at some tired legs, but Stu Holden, I guess, called it absolute filth, the things he was doing with the ball in the limited amount of time that he played last night. If that is going to be a change of pace option in a late game situation for Atlanta United, sign me up. I thought he looked excellent, really, really good. And as Atlanta United was trying to see the match out, that got me out of my seat. And I know you guys are more familiar with Luis Fernando than I, but here's a guy who played so well with Atlanta United too last year that he played his way into a first-team contract, which they actually offered him in the midst of last season. So you know that the club is very, very high on him. And I think last night we saw a big reason why. Now, again, it's a very, very short sample. You don't want to overreact to it. And I'm not sure where Luis Fernando fits into the day-to-day selection for this first team, but that was a major surprise to me. I was in no way expecting to see that kind of magic from Luis Fernando in that match. I wasn't really even expecting to see him in the match. So to even see him and see what he did, again, didn't have a huge impact on the match, but it was just something very, very encouraging to see.
So looking ahead, how's your comfort level going into the MLS opener in Nashville on Saturday with this group?
I've always been really confident about this group, Jason. I think the one thing that always gave me pause was, when everyone's healthy and available, this is going to be, I think, one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the league, but everyone is not healthy and available, and how is Atlanta United going to cope with that? I love the fact that this is a Tuesday-Saturday turnaround and not a Wednesday-Saturday turnaround, because it sounds like, for the most part, the same selection that you had last night is going to be your team on Saturday. It sounds like Matheus Rossetto is kind of inching closer to a resolution on his visa, but it's not going to happen for Saturday. It sounds like Miles Robinson is kind of sort of inching his way back, but not yet. George Bell, I guess, could be a wild card, and we'll get a little more clarity on that perhaps tomorrow when the team reconvenes for training. So this is basically your team, and you worry about just the slightest bit of match compression, but you're so early in the season, I don't think it's going to matter too much. Where you really get into the grind is when you're going from Cincinnati, potentially down to Mexico City, to Sporting Kansas City, a team that I think is going to be a million times better than they were last year because they're going to be healthy, hopefully, for them. And then playing the second leg against either Club America or Comunicaciones. That's where it could get a little bit sticky. But I think by then, you're talking about 3 weeks away. Hopefully you get Miles Robinson back. Matheus Rossetto is available. You already have Mulroney available now. Maybe you get Bello back in the mix by then. You hope that you don't have anyone else hurt. Then you can talk about some real squad rotation. And in the midfield in particular, Rossetto's going to play. And you have to think he's going to have a chance to start. Where does that leave Hyndman? Where does that leave Remedi? I like the fact that they were able to get Jeff Lorenowitz a night off last night because I think there's a chance he might be in the plans for Saturday. So I'm confident. I feel really good. I think last night we saw how dangerous this team can be, acknowledging the level of the opponent. They still went out and did a professional job, and they looked really, really good and really, really threatening in the attack. So as long as they just don't get absolutely decimated by injuries, I think they're going to be just fine. All indications, all accounts have been extremely positive, really, since the start of training camp. They haven't lost a match since the start of training camp, other than that penalty situation at Leones Negros, which really is a draw. They're fine. They've only given up 3 goals in the run of play since the preseason began against the first group. They're fine. I'm very happy with where they are.
Since the timeline is full this morning with under, on par, and overreactions, let me grab from the timeline here going forward. Matthew Balti this morning, and I'll give this question to the both of you. Have to get my hashtag Overreaction Wednesday thoughts in early. PB and J are going to carve up MLS defenses all year, and I like our chances against Club America no matter where we play them. Here's his question. Matthew asks, would advancing to the CCL semis, Mike, let's start with you, be bigger than the Campeones Cup win?
No. Well, it's big. It's really, really big. It's really, really big, but I don't know. Having been in that building in August of last year and having the feel for what that appeared to mean for both teams and how that was treated, especially by the media in Mexico, as this. I mean, the Mexican media treated that as a major accomplishment for MLS. I think it's close, but I lean more towards the trophy. I also say that because there is precedent for MLS clubs getting to the semifinal and even to the final of the CONCACAF Champions League. To this point, there had been no precedent for MLS to win the Campeones Cup. So it's close. I think that's a great question. I lean more towards the trophy because I have high expectations for Atlanta United in this tournament anyway. I mean, to me, getting to the semifinals, I expect them to be there. I expect them to be one of the 4 best teams in this confederation. In a one-off trophy game, it just feels a little bit different, and things can happen. And it's best on best for 90 minutes, and there's a totally different feel to it. So totally would respect anyone's opinion who thought otherwise, but I would give just a very, very slight edge to Campeones Cup in that comparison.
See, I think otherwise. And a lot of it's just because Champions League, to me, is the pinnacle. And Campeones Cup is a one-off. It's a Super Cup type of competition for me. It's 2 champions playing in a one-off. Atlanta United didn't field its starting 11 in that match, partially due to schedule congestion. I think partially due to kind of what that match was. I think it's that match, because Atlanta won it in the way that they did, that trophy means more now. It didn't going in. Champions League, to beat the same team over 2 legs and survive a leg at the Estadio Azteca, it's a better accomplishment for me. It might not be if they got knocked out in the semifinal round. I think it has to lead to more. But I'm always going to value Champions League competition more than a one-off trophy match that's a Super Cup feel. I think Champions League should be, for MLS teams, the top trophy available. And they have to put everything towards it. And knocking out a giant like Club America, it deserves that type of, I think, response. I think it will be massive. I think the series will be massive, period. The Campeones Cup elevates it and I think takes it to another level. If you, looking at the Mexican media, if Atlanta gets past Club America in the Champions League over 2 legs, it will be viewed in a much bigger way than getting past Club America in the Campeones Cup in Atlanta. It's not just because of the stage of the competition. I think it's the stature of the 2 clubs and the fact that Atlanta hasn't done it yet. So if they do it, it's going to be a big, big, big deal. I think it's a bigger deal.
Daniel Price in this morning, and the adjective that he uses for the performance last night, he says it looked very complete last night. He says he was happy with last night's performance and really looks forward to what Atlanta United produces against Nashville on Saturday. Jason, how would you gauge Daniel's use of the word complete? Is that in the ballpark?
Yeah.
Very proper adjective?
you weren't really tested in a major way. Now, Motagwa's approach did have something to do with that. Let's not get it twisted. They came in very defensive. They wanted to limit opportunities. They wanted to stay in the match as long as they could. That gave Atlanta more room to work with. It's a fact. But Atlanta, when the game changed, when Motagwa started throwing more numbers forward, Mike, there was maybe a 5-minute stretch where it felt like Motagwa was putting a couple things together, and Atlanta adjusted and regained control and saw it out.
Yeah, probably maybe 2 minutes each on either side of halftime after Atlanta United got the goal. And look, I don't know if Motagwa made a tactical mistake. It's an interesting spot for them to be in because they're 1-1 on aggregate. They're absolutely the underdogs going into Kennesaw. I understand why they would come out 5-4-1 and try to hit Atlanta United on the counter. But it was a strategy where they still needed to get a goal. So I'm not 100% sure I understand and or agree with that philosophy. And then obviously once the game opened up, it played right into Atlanta United's hands. So yeah, they
could have affected that approach. We don't know about Klusener. He wasn't ever really mentioned. We know Castillo wasn't 100%. I just don't know if Diego Vasquez trusted anybody else up top, but you saw Moreira be far less effective by himself. If you had somebody else there, they could have played a 4-4-2 and still been very defensive and defended with 8, but their counters would have been more dangerous for Atlanta if they'd had somebody else with Moreira.
Montez also didn't look 100% to me.
And that's probably why they went 3 center backs, to give him a little more protection, but you wanted his presence as the captain.
Totally agree and understand. I think the thing that's getting overlooked in all the excitement about PB&J, which is justified, is that Atlanta United, over the course of these 2 legs, defended extremely well, aside from one lapse by Mo Adams down in Honduras. And Brad Guzan had to make some big saves in San Pedro Sula. I don't want to minimize that. But I thought, Anton Walks really stepped up and did a great job at center back. Franco Escobar may have been, next to Pitti, Atlanta United's best player in this round of the tournament. And Meza just looks so solid and composed, and he looks like, you made the Michael Parker's comparison last night, Jason, and I agree with it. I mean, he's someone who's just not going to make mistakes, and that's going to be crucial for Atlanta United to have a center back that you're not going to have to worry about a rash challenge or a mistake or a marking error or anything like that, and someone who can also jump up and help you in set pieces. So. That to me is almost as important as Atlanta United finding 4 goals over these first 2 matches. The fact that they gave up 1 goal in the run of play, which was a breakdown. It was still a very good goal by Moreira, but other than that, you never really worried about Atlanta United defensively. They were really, really solid. And the midfield has a lot to do with that too. I think Eric Rometti was a big part of that. Jeff Lorenowitz was a big part of that. Down in Honduras. So complete is a good word because top to bottom, end to end, Atlanta United fully dominated and controlled that match last night.
Ben Horgan is in this morning at Ben Horgan ATL. Mike, he says that PT looks every part of the South American Player of the Year. If he keeps this up, he'll be at MLS MVP. # on par reaction. # action at the fraction.
Could be. Long way to go. We haven't even played a league match yet, but Pitti just looks more comfortable to me, and it feels very, very reminiscent of Barco's jump from year 1 to year 2, and we were even talking about this off the air last night to an extent, Miguel Almiron's jump from year 1 to year 2. It does take a while to get accustomed to a new league in a different hemisphere. And Pity Martinez's body language just looks so much more positive, so much more comfortable than it did this time last year. And it sounds like a lot of that has to do with getting into a better place with his teammates and his manager. Now, how will he respond when adversity happens? I think that's always a question, and that's something that has not come about yet because we're so early in this season. Atlanta United is going to face some adversity. And Pity Martinez will probably face some personal adversity, and how he responds to that will be interesting. But I kind of feel like Pity is picking up where he left off in the final quarter of last season. He was playing some outstanding soccer for Atlanta United in September, October. Unfortunately, it didn't stretch into November, but he was playing very, very well for Atlanta United. And it feels like he picked up where he left off.
Okay, question real quick. Have either one of you guys had any experience as music DJs, DJing at a radio station, introducing music?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, who wants to win the rock, paper, scissors battle to introduce the hot new tune by Hans Zimmer for MLS?
Scissors.
That wins.
Yeah, I'll take paper. I'll take paper.
Right. You want to take
all right? So what's it? Does the song have a title?
It's the new MLS anthem. I don't think it has anything other than that.
All right, 10:17 in the AM here on Soccer Down Here, and here's a new one from Hans Zimmer. It's Anthem from MLS.
Lie. This is kind of cool.
So is this what they're going to walk out to?
Yes. Hans Zimmer did a pretty good job.
Yeah, it's okay.
Well, remember,
this
is a guy
epic
who, and considering that this is the guy who has been nominated for 10 Academy Awards that include Gladiator, Inception, Interstellar, and Dunkirk. I mean, he won for The Lion King, but you're talking Best Original Score for a bunch of movies, and I think that kind of music, the Dunkirk, Interstellar, Inception, Gladiator, doing something like that for MLS, that's got to be right there in his wheelhouse.
Hans said, with this composition, I tried to give fans and the players a feeling of anticipation, drama, and excitement. Everything that makes this game so uniquely special. I think he accomplished it. That's really good.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, if that's what they're walking out to, I'm guessing there's not like a video accompaniment or component to it or anything like that.
Probably not in the stadiums. There's a video that the league has posted. I just tweeted it. Sports Illustrated had the exclusive drop of the new Hans Zimmer track, and the video's kind of cool. I mean, it's a big production, and I'm impressed, because usually these things, to me, it's kind of like, okay, that's cool, whatever. It's the walkout song, that's nice. But this one, yeah, I can see that working really well in a stadium as the teams walk out.
Yeah, I mean, when you get somebody with the cachet of a Hans Zimmer and you tap him, it's like you shoot him an email. It's like, yo, dog, can you do an anthem for us? With his history, I mean, you're going to get that kind of the powerful impact and the powerful music and all that kind of stuff. I mean, to me, as I was listening to it, it started out like one of those shoe ads that we've seen in the last couple of years, where you have all the big stars and all the quick cuts and all the light show and everything. So, yeah, I could definitely see the music video accompanied with this without having seen it yet.
It's good. It's good. It'll be good for the league. And the anthem needed a refresh. Yes. So, I mean, absolutely, no better time to do it than to start the 25th season of Major League Soccer this weekend. I like it. It's good. Good job, MLS.
You go, Hans Zimmer. Let's see. Joey Logan this morning has an on par reaction, and Jason, will start with you with this one. He says, Joey's still curious about Husechu's role and contribution. Rumors of the winger from Tigers popped up literally last night before the match.
Yeah, the rumors, I mean, they're all over TUDN and Mexican media this morning. It's a big one when it comes to Jürgen Damm. You also have Manuel Castro, who is a right winger, who I think will be pushing for playing time, and Mateus Satu will be coming in and pushing for playing time. That's a lot of talent. There's not enough starting spots for all of that talent. It's a good place to be. So are you going to see competition for spots? Yeah. Because now, if Mateus Satu, and Frank de Boer talked about it after the match, heading to Brazil for what sounds like the final stages of getting his paperwork to be able to play and his visa approved. So if he's available, not this weekend, but maybe for that home opener against Cincinnati, and you very much hope so for the quarterfinals of CONCACAF, who makes room for him if he goes into the starting lineup? Is it Heinemann? Is it Remedi? Do you change the shape to accommodate him? Then when Manuel Castro is in, if he earns a starting spot, who makes room for him? And if you add Jürgen Damm in the summertime, who makes room? These are the problems you want to have. You want to have more talent than you have positions on the field for, because then you have depth, but then you also have internal competition, because everyone will be pushing to get on that field. And then the flip side is something we talked about on the full-time report last night. If you're a top team and you're going to play a lot of games, you need a lot of talent, because you don't want to ask guys to play 50 games in a year. You want to be able to spread that out and have a player like Castro, a player like Damm, a player like Remedi, who can come in and give you a lift fresh because you're rotating the group.
No doubt about it. To the point that we were talking about PT, Jorge B came in and said, I remember at the 76th minute, PT ran sideways and tracked a ball. Although he fell down, he received an outstanding ovation for his effort. Since he was full sprinting late in the game, he looks calm and confident. And I believe this is just the beginning for a great year. #Overreaction Wednesday.
That happened right in front of us. I think, Jason, if I'm remembering correctly, like right in front of the Motagua technical area. And
that was
something that I'm beginning to wonder is Pitti a little more fit than he was at any point last year? Remember, he went right from Argentina to Atlanta with very, very little time off between the end of the league year in Argentina and the beginning of the league year in MLS. And then he went down to play for the Argentina senior national team, and an international window got hurt, and then they have gotten his fitness derailed a little bit. He just looks more fit to me. He looks more spry. And along with clearly, in terms of body language, appearing to be more comfortable with his team and potentially with his manager, I think he's more fit. I mean, that was a long recovery run at a late point of the match when Pitti had already put in a very heavy workload. Very encouraging to see. If you go to the Azteca, that's 8,000 feet up. So, if Pitti's in better fitness now than he was at any point last year, that's a good thing, because you're going to need everyone in tip-top condition to potentially play at the Azteca in 2 weeks.
It's funny how different, I think, soccer cultures respond to different things. Like, that moment in Argentina wouldn't really elicit a reaction. But in the United States, I think in England, it's something players have talked about when they've moved to England. That type of, it's hustle. It's simple as that. It's a hustle play. Those types of plays are very much appreciated, whereas some things that are appreciated in other countries aren't as appreciated in the United States or England or different ones. You have to adjust a little bit as a player, and look, these players notice that. When you're Ezequiel Barco, when you're Pity Martinez, and you're a fantastically skilled player, and you have made your money and your reputation on being one of the most technical players in your team, in your league, the expectation of hustle plays is just not there. But here, with not just this fan base, but just this soccer culture, those plays are needed to get that reaction out of the crowd. And look, guys love it when you get that reaction out of the crowd. So Pitty's gonna, give you that when you get that reaction out of it. But what I hope is that some of the other plays, like what we saw with Luis Fernando last night, I hope you consistently get those reactions for those types of plays too. And it becomes a little more widespread, because Pitty, man, he put on such a great performance last night. That one got one of the bigger reactions, but it wasn't one of the most important things he did, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's see. And this next one is as much a shout out to the 17s yesterday as it is for anyone else here. Five Stripe Daily, Mike. No, we have not talked about this yet, but did you guys talk about Mike getting hashtag action at the fraction trending and even seeing Darren use it? Very cool, guys. But that's as much of a shout out to the 17s who hopped onto this as well.
Hey, listen, leave it up to Atlanta United Twitter to get anything going. But again, I mean, John, that is your phrase. That is your saying. I wanted to make sure that, between your followers and my followers and other people who follow the club, that we just understand and embrace what a great encapsulation of the atmosphere at Fifth Third Bank Stadium it is when we call it action at the fraction. And what really warms my heart is that now, because they're going to play at Fifth Third Bank Stadium again in 3 weeks, that we will have 3 more weeks of hashtag action at the fraction to hopefully get this trending globally. There are a lot of tough things going on in the world right now between coronavirus and a contentious presidential primary and the stock market and all of that. Wouldn't it be great if we could dedicate all of our attention over the next 3 weeks to embrace the action that will occur at the fraction? And also really to pay homage to John, who was a terrific wordsmith and kind of workshopping a couple different slogans for what you present every week from the proving ground in Fifth Third Bank Stadium on those Atlanta United 2 broadcasts. I know there is no one happier and more proud of this situation than Jason right now, because I kind of call Jason the father of the action at the fraction. Everyone calls him the godfather of Atlanta soccer. He truly is the father of the action at the fraction. John gave life to the saying, but it was really Jason that gave it wings.
Yeah. I mean, it's a shout out to. Uh-oh.
Jason even said it on the broadcast last night, for what it's worth.
Wait, what?
Yes.
It happened.
Yeah. He's coming around. Next thing you know, he's going to be eating Nutella and, drinking like red wine or something like that. I'll get him going. I've gotten him turned on action at the fraction. Nutella's the next step, but we don't go to Montreal for a while. Hey, can I say really quickly, by the way, fans were great last night. The Motagua supporters were great,
no
too.
Doubt.
I don't know if anyone's tweeted any stories about interactions with the Motagua supporters, but I hope we had kind of the same thing we had last year down at Herediano, where it was friendly and maybe there was some scarf or jersey exchanges or something like that. But, man, the dedication of those Motagua supporters. I thought Motagua played very bravely last night. I thought their supporters who stood in there until the very end brought an extra energy to that venue that already had a ton of energy. It was a real palpable feel last night. And, it's a good appetizer for what could potentially happen in 3 weeks if the opponent is indeed Club America. But the atmosphere last night at the fraction was awesome. And the fans, as always, on their feet for 90 minutes, loud, engaged. It's a really great venue because you feel so close to the game. And I think this is something that needs to be embraced for 3 weeks from now, rather than fretting over why we can't play at the Benz. Atlanta United 6-0-0 at the fraction for a reason. It's a very tough venue to come in and win a match if you're the visiting team. And that's a real credit to the 17s and the Motagua supporters who created just a really terrific atmosphere last night.
Couple updates real quick before you go, Mike. Don Garber said at media availability this morning that they're expecting 50,000 in Nashville And
wow.
according to our friend Jimmy Vance, around 250 seats remain until it's a sellout in Nashville.
They are not opening both sides of the upper deck.
Okay.
At least as of now. So the side of the stadium, the stand that faces the cameras, that upper deck is open. The upper deck on our side, the press box side where the cameras are, is not open.
I'm looking at the map that Jimmy posted, and I'm wondering because there's the 250 tickets. There's a bunch of back rows on one section. I wonder if they're starting to open sections when they sell out.
They might be. The weather forecast has gotten much better for Saturday. So I would not be shocked if Nashville is looking at the increased demand, and they might be tempted to go ahead and open more seats. There's obviously a huge staffing need that would come into play with that, security concessions, everything like that. So I don't know if they're kind of like maxed out right now, but that is awesome. 50,000 on Saturday. That good for Nashville, and hopefully that means there's a really healthy Atlanta contingent that will travel as well. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 5,000 or 10,000 coming up from Atlanta to be a part of this on Saturday.
Yep. Yeah, it's getting into that category. So you won't be on with us on Friday because we got stuff going on in Nashville on Friday.
Yeah. We do. We'll be busy. Now, remember, stoppage time tomorrow on the 92.9 The Game Facebook page. And then, you're right, Friday, 4 to 6 Nashville time, 5 to 7 Eastern. Jason and I and Jimmy Vance, stoppage time on 92.9 The Game. We have a ton of guests, too many to list right now. Darren Eels is among them, though. Many guests from Atlanta United, and we're going to get the Nashville side of things as well. Dukes and Bell will be there from 1 to 4 Nashville time. I'm having trouble with my time zones. 1 to 4 Nashville time, 2 to 5 Eastern time. Tailgate Brewery on Music Row in Nashville. That's just on Friday. And then, of course, we've got everything coming up on Saturday. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm glad to see the weather's improving because that's going to really, really help create a great atmosphere.
Yeah, we'll see a whole bunch of 17s making the trip. It's going to be a great kickoff for Major League Soccer in Nashville. Can't wait to get up there and get all this started. We'll see you in Music City, Mike.
Yeah, I can't wait too, guys. See you up there. John, we'll see you there as well.
Be good. See you Friday.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, reset for the final segment. Get your final questions in on an Overreaction Wednesday. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. We'll be right back.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky and Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Why am I not surprised that lots of folks who talk about soccer in the United States on a regular basis are complaining about the MLS anthem. It's not anthemic. It's I don't know. Can we stop complaining about everything related to American soccer, please, and just enjoy something for being good?
For real.
It's a fun song to come out to. It's better than the previous anthem, which made you want to go to sleep. This is good. It's okay to just say it's good. You don't have to hate on everything to build your credibility. Anyway. Sorry. Let's move on to Overreaction Wednesday. That was my overreaction to what I feel like are overreactions about a Hans Zimmer walkout song that, has got a little bit of hype to it. That's cool.
My overreaction? I think it's better than the Champions League anthem already.
Yeah. I agree with that. People are going to, at you and at me about
Fine,
it.
at me.
It's not the Champions League. It's not from Europe. It's cool. It's American. Deal with it. Enjoy it.
Hans Zimmer did Gladiator. That was a kick-ass sound.
That doesn't make it a better song. That's a great soundtrack, yes. I'm saying this is a great song. You don't have to compare it to anything else. This is a better walkout song than what they had. It is different. If you hear that, do you think you're going to be watching a game from Denmark? Do you think you're going to be watching a game from Bolivia? No, you're going to hear that and you're going to think you're watching a game from the United States or Canada because that's where you're watching a game from. Accomplishment. Good. Here we go, Overreaction Wednesday.
At me. It's better than the Champions League anthem already. All right, here we go. Rapid fire for the final 20-plus minutes. Couple on Barco. Shiva, nothing to overreact here. It was a fun match, and being so close to the field and seeing the ball movement, I must say, Barco has some amazing talent on the ball. It was frustrating for me to see subs come in so late, especially with a comfortable lead and a game in 2 days, but humanity is a group effort from @Saturnus says Barco was a ball-seeking missile. Very pleased.
Well, the last part, I think, is what's generating the most conversation. You didn't need to sub because, honestly, you weren't really expending a ton of energy here. You are early in your season. It's not like you have a bunch of minutes on these legs, and you were in control. You were managing your physical output. Atlanta United was in control of where things were at that point. So, you waited till the 80th minute to sub. I think it was partially due to the fact that Motagua made all of their subs by, I don't have it in front of me, by like the 65th minute or so. And, it changed dramatically. It went from a 5-4-1 to, honestly, in a lot of ways, a 4-2-4. With everybody up top for Motagua. So you didn't want to just incorporate a bunch of subs at that point. You wanted guys who were, in the flow of the match to help make those adjustments to the changes that were needed after what Motagua did. So you handled that. You got it back under control and got the 3-0 lead and then made the subs. So you're good. Now you look at Nashville because let's look ahead. This is not as bad as it was last time around. You play in Nashville Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4 days later. Then you play a week later. Then you get into a trickier spot, and we'll know tonight where you will be, and I think we'll know Thursday night what day it will be after the quarterfinals are all decided. It'll either be Tuesday or Wednesday the following week. That's where you start to then really think about subs from a minutes perspective. Right now, you're good, and you handled things, and I didn't feel like they burned a bunch of energy, late in the match yesterday.
And Tino is really excited to see the team play well and seem to be in sync. Can you comment on the play out of the back? To my novice eye, it seemed really good. #FrancoFalse9, #Fernando Filth.
Yeah, it was really good, and there's a couple of reasons for it. You had a pitch that you could actually do that on, and you couldn't do it in San Pedro Sula. And being on the road, you want to limit risk anyway of building out of the back. So I like the approach in Honduras of not trying to build out of the back. You didn't invite risk. Here you could. And also Motagua sitting back deeper. They allowed you to. And when they did step up and press on occasion, you played through it. And you moved the ball quickly. There was a sequence where Motagua got numbers forward, and 3 passes Atlanta had eliminated that first line of the press. And it was very quick. It's good to see. It's only going to get better. It's only going to get sharper with the more games that they play together.
Jeff Plucker, I think last night was the first time we've seen exactly what Frank DeBoer wants from his team and how it looks. I worry a little about how that plays out during regular season games where teams are more concentrated on ties, thus they won't be as spread out. But overall, very happy.
I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think it's just going to, how do you replicate this, in Carson against the Galaxy? What do they bring to the table that you have to worry about? How do you replicate this performance, against a press like the Red Bulls, especially if they move to a 4-2-2-2, which would be a little bit different than they've played in the past? It's going to be case by case. I don't think the situation of draws factors into how Atlanta plays comparing last night to other games. I think it's more about different opponents. Can you play this way against an LAFC? Can you play this way against a Portland? Those are going to be the questions that come up. And can you find ways to win when you don't have your best stuff? Because those days are going to come up too. Can you get kind of down and dirty and do what we saw in Honduras, where you play a little more direct and you skip the midfield? Can you press teams that are poor in possession but try to build up out of the back? It's going to be different every match, not just because of those situations. It's just the nature of where I think this league is going to, where different opponents present different challenges, and you have to be willing to alter your approach enough to handle those challenges, but also not lose your identity.
Ben Grabowski this morning. Great performance with an exclamation point. The attack looks dangerous, even when not completely clicking on all cylinders just yet. In the back, there seems to be more of a calm, even when it gets chaotic. Last season, I felt it got very frantic very quickly at times. By the way, great call on the air, as usual.
Oh, it was fun. Last night was a lot of fun. I really like where this is headed. And that's the key. I mean, last night was really good. I hope they're better. I hope they're better in Nashville. And then I hope they're better against Cincinnati, and I hope they're better against Comunicaciones after they pull an upset of epic proportions and knock out Club America. And I hope they get better every match. Will they? Probably not, because nobody does that. It's almost impossible. But I hope on the whole that as good as this is starting from, that this is the baseline. And you keep elevating the performances from here. Because if you do, this is a team that can compete for all trophies this year. And that's something you always want to see. And that's the ambition Atlanta has.
Katie Weaver this morning has a few thoughts. One, loved seeing a large number of Motagua fans there. The quarterfinals at the Fraction could be nuts. Two.
Yeah, 1 second on that, because that's a big deal. That came out last night that it would be at Fifth Third Bank Stadium for the quarterfinals of CONCACAF. It could be Club America in that match. We talked about it some in hour number 1. I've seen some questions that have been thrown at me about, why not Georgia Tech? Why not Georgia State? Georgia Tech it's either a renovation project or a construction project or something. It's not available. And yes, it was asked about. And Georgia State, you'd have to replace the turf. And I don't know if you would be able to replace it and have the new turf actually settle and be a better playing surface than Fifth Third Bank Stadium between now and when that game would be. You would not be playing on as good of a surface, period. The reason why you'd have to replace it is those lines, the football lines, are stitched in. They're not painted down for every football game. They are stitched in at Georgia State. Kind of a bad decision by Georgia State's athletic department, just saying, to do that. Maybe they got a discount. I don't know. But it limits their options on, using that facility because you would have football lines stitched into the turf. So with those two options out, and at this time you're not going to be able to get Truist Park either, and I don't know what the width would be at Truist. It might look like Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
From a soccer pitch perspective, Fifth Third Bank is the best you're going to have. And from a controlling the Club America, because I don't think Comunicaciones would travel as well, controlling a Club America crowd and how many Águilas fans would be in the building, Fifth Third is the ideal. Because there's a minimum that CONCACAF requires, but beyond that, you're selling to your season ticket holders. The most hardcore of the hardcore are going to get these tickets. It's going to be special in that building that night. Will everybody who wants to go get in? No, you won't. But there really aren't any other options because of an event that was booked in November of 2014, well before Atlanta United had ever played a match.
Point two from Katie. Mulroney and Heineman were impressive.
Yeah, I thought Mulroney struggled defensively in the first half, but second half was really, really good, and that's what you want to see from any younger player getting his first time with Atlanta United. Improvement. There were a couple times in the first half he felt like he was a little slow to react. He was a little slow to step to the ball defensively. That was better in the second half, and he started to get forward a little bit more and impact the match more, and that's the growth you want to see. I thought Mulroney was good. Thought he was very good.
And then her third point on an overreaction Wednesday, little to no replays on the FS1 broadcast, and she wants to know why.
I don't know. I'm guessing it's just a world feed idea. You probably know more about how world feeds would work than I do. I know some world feeds will... I don't know if CONCACAF does it, but I know some, like you get basically like a baseline, and then domestic broadcasters will create their own replays and add more on top of that. I've seen that happen before. I don't know if CONCACAF's doing that. My understanding is FS1 and any of the Fox channels are taking the straight world feed and putting it on there.
Yeah, and obviously, yes, it does come down to production costs and investment and all those kinds of things. And in this situation, it just looks like the Fox networks have taken the world feed and are adapting their call to that. So what you're getting is...
the call is happening where the world feed's originating from. Like that is... Yeah, it's the world feed call, too. So if you're in the UK, for example, and you're watching it on the CONCACAF YouTube because there's not a domestic broadcaster with it, you're getting the same call that FS1 has. FS1 is taking the world feed, and they're providing the broadcasters for the world feed. So they're basically sharing the world feed. But in the sense, am I wrong in saying that the world feed is usually a more generic broadcast with fewer replays to leave room for local broadcasters to add elements if they so choose?
Yes, that is an option for a rights holder to come over the top. I guess is
that's what I thought.
The easiest way to phrase it is that the baseline exists. If you want that, fine. If you have production costs built in where you can do an over the top and do other things and stick to their graphics package that the governing body has, but if you want to do more, you can.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I always felt like world feeds where we see them are just a little more generic and basic for that reason.
Yeah. John Nason this morning. The sky is falling. This is Overreaction Wednesday. The sky is falling. We can't use the bends. Kennesaw's out in the sticks. Husechu will never get his visa in time. There's no Nagby replacement, but that Pity guy looks useful.
I've heard all those other things. Look, I get it from the Kennesaw thing for the quarterfinals. I wish there was another way. I'm sure everybody wishes there was another way to do it. But there are some advantages from this. And the biggest one is you're going to have a greater percentage of an Atlanta United crowd. You are. Flat out. And that's something to be happy about. And the pitch at Kennesaw is better than it would have been at Bobby Dodd. It's better than it would have been at Georgia State, and it's obviously better than it would have been at Truist, the baseball stadium. So it's the best option, and there are advantages baked into it. So the rest of it, yeah, I've heard a few of those things, and maybe those are starting to get a little bit quieter. The Satu thing, if you missed it last night in post-match comments from Frank DeBoer, Mateos is headed to Brazil. He will be, I guess, at the embassy in Brazil to get his final paperwork for the visa processing, and he should be good at that point. He obviously won't be available for Saturday, but he could, fingers crossed, be available for Cincinnati, and I think it's pretty likely that you could see him for the first leg of the CONCACAF Champions League quarterfinal.
DeAndre Jackson on a Wall Pass Wednesday has an overreaction Wednesday, but he says it's more of an on par. I felt like this was Atlanta United firing on almost all cylinders. PB&J looked as deadly as ever, and I feel are primed for a great season. Midfield did great moving play up from the back and letting PB&J do their thing. The defense was excellent, and Luis Fernando is pure filth. Going to be a good season, y'all.
It's going to be fun. I hope that we look back at this in a few months and say, oh, yeah, man, they weren't even really firing on most of the cylinders yet. But it's progress, and they looked better here than they did in Honduras. They looked better than they did in Guatemala, or in Guadalajara. They looked better than they did in Birmingham. It's progress, and you want to see if they can look even better on Saturday in Nashville. You want to keep challenging, yourselves in this team to hit the next level and be even better. Give up fewer chances and create more chances. You want to continually strive for those things.
Old Swarthy on an overreaction Wednesday. The combo play between Joseph and Pity is beautiful, and it absolutely has to have the rest of MLS quivering. P.S. Jason, you were right about the Fox deal. It was only bad last week. It was very nice this week, and I'm sure it will be from here on out.
Yeah, from here on out, I think you're good because you don't have quite as many games, and I don't think you'll have as many games happening at the same time. It just bad luck with scheduling with the LAFC Leon game. That one did deserve the priority over the game in San Pedro Sula. It did. That was a bigger game. So that got FS2. Atlanta got bumped. Atlanta got FS1 this time. I think you'll see FS1 wherever available going forward, and if not, you'll see Atlanta United CONCACAF matches on FS2.
Keaton Thomas is on par today. He says he liked what he saw last night. It's only been 2 games, and even with injuries and visa issues, I feel as though the team is beginning to gel well together. PB&J will be the 3-headed monster that people will need to watch out for this season. Hashtags moving on up and Vamos ATL.
Yes, it is definitely progressing, and PB&J is going to be a lot of fun. We got a little bit of this, though.
Yes.
Pablo Maurer at The Athletic is reporting that DC United is in talks with former Columbus Crew designated player Federico Higuain. Whew.
Okay.
Completely and utterly unexpected. Higuain would be in a player-coach role. He is 35 years old. He was released by the Columbus Crew last fall. He had an ACL injury fairly early in 2019 and missed the season. Contract demands, according to Maurer at The Athletic, said to be a fraction of the $1.1 million he received as a designated player last year. One source said the ask is around $100,000 for a year. If that's the case, yeah, go get him, especially with the Paul Arriola injury. Now, Higuain's not Paul Arriola. He's going to play a completely different role. Would he be a second striker? Yeah. Could he be a number 10? Yeah. How do you make the pieces fit with Higuain, Flores, Gressel, Assad? No Arriola for quite a while. Ola Kamara up top. That's going to be down to Ben Olsen and maybe part of Federico Higuain if he's coming on as a player coach. For $100,000 a year, that's a good get. Don't know what he's got left in the tank, but that's also not much
Right.
of a risk of if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. If he's not what he was before, can he be a player that you get something off the bench out of him? Yeah. I think he can at least give you that. He's a very, very intelligent player. So $100,000, if that's the number, that's a smart move for DC United.
Yeah, DeAndre also wanted to add his overreaction by saying playing what's most likely going to be Club America at KSU instead of the Benz is a huge disappointment. Don't get me wrong. I get it with the Final Four, but the huge disappointment nonetheless.
Yeah, there's no other way around it. I mean, I'm sure every option to make it work at the Benz was explored. Tech's not available, and Georgia State isn't available because of the pitch. So this is the next option, and I do think it's a huge opportunity. I think it's going to be okay. I think fans are going to embrace this because of the opportunities that are presented to it. But I've read the flip side of potential reactions when you look at what's going on with New York City today playing at Red Bull Arena. It's a 6:00 kick. New York City supporters are protesting, and I think some are going to sit outside and not go into Red Bull Arena for this. And I don't think that's very realistic.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like New York City FC has not tried to build a stadium in the 5 boroughs up until now. It's not like they haven't put forth an effort. It's just not easy. So if you're mad about that, I think if you've paid attention, you know that they've put in an effort and they've tried, and now it actually sounds like they're making really good progress on a pretty special development. And it's the same type of situation. Where else could they play? Would you rather see them play this match at MetLife? I don't think that would be a better atmosphere. Yes, you're playing at Red Bull Arena. Yes, it's the home of the New York Red Bulls. I think it's a wasted opportunity from the supporters of NYC to show up the Red Bulls and actually have people in the building. Any which way, you're in the driver's seat of this series, and you're probably going to advance to the quarterfinals of the CONCACAF Champions League in your rival's house. That's kind of cool. Embrace it, because there wasn't another option. They could have went to Connecticut to play. Would that have been better? No, I don't think so. So embrace it. I don't get the protest. I think the protests are over the top here, because I don't think they had any other realistic options.
All right. Since we're getting close to the top of the hour, let's finish off with a question for you. Okay. And thanks to everyone who has lit up our timeline this morning. We'll get back into it tomorrow and keep sending in your overreactions and on pars for Thursday thoughts. Barry Bryant has an overreaction.
Okay.
The peanut butter in the PB&J is definitely smooth. What are your thoughts on Atlanta United possibly playing at the Estadio Azteca twice versus Club America and Cruz Azul? Does this give us any advantage to getting to the final?
It doesn't give you an advantage to play in the building twice, but I think Atlanta United can handle Cruz Azul. I think Atlanta United can handle a lot of the potential opponents that they could face. I think that the two top Mexican teams in the competition are Club America and León. And those are the ones on this side of the bracket. So if you get through that, I don't think they're going to have any fear about going back to face a Cruz Azul in a final. Because you're looking at Club America most likely in the semifinal or in the quarterfinal. And then in the semifinal, León would be the team that I think you're looking at next. And that's the team that's been the most consistent in Mexico over the last couple of years. So that one's more fearful. I think if you get to that stage where you're seeing a Cruz Azul, you take it and you're happy, because that's a team that I think Atlanta United's better than.
All right, so let's see. Do you want to put a bow on it since we're at the top of the hour?
Yeah, a couple things really fast before we go. Ian Ayer, Nashville SC CEO, says there are over 50,000 tickets sold for Saturday night. We'll see if they keep opening up more sections and selling more tickets, but over 50,000 for that one. It looks like there's around 30,000 sold for the Chicago opener, which also involves Atlanta United on March 21st. So that's very cool. Atlanta's going to be playing in front of some big crowds over the next month. The Higuain thing was such a shock to see that I'm still a little blown away by it. I'm blown away by the amount. That's one that you definitely take and run. That's good work for DC if they get him at that kind of price tag. There's going to be a lot of stuff that comes out over the next couple of days. This is a big season launch for MLS on Saturday, and you're going to start to see a lot of things come out to talk about it, to celebrate it. You know, best moments in league history, best players in league history. What does 2020 look like? Things are definitely picking up, although there is still some CONCACAF Champions League to keep an eye on. Tonight, 6 o'clock, New York City hosting San Carlos. They're up 5-3 on aggregate. 8 o'clock, 2 matches, and 2 really interesting matches. Montreal at the Big O, which that turf is supposed to be very bad. They are hosting Saprissa, and Tigres is hosting Alianza of El Salvador. Tigres is trailing 2-1 on aggregate. They do have the away goal. A 1-0 result gets them through if they're able to pull that off. Alianza, I can't wait to see what their approach is in this one. Tonight, 10 o'clock, the one a lot of Atlanta United fans will be watching, Club America and Comunicaciones. 1-1 on aggregate. Club America has the away goal. Tomorrow, 2 10 o'clock matches, and both very interesting. Seattle Olympia. Seattle is 2-2 on aggregate, but they have 2 away goals. They're in the driver's seat. LAFC needs 2 goals to level the tie with Leon. If they concede anything, then they're going to need 4 or more, and it's going to get very tricky. That match could have a ton of fireworks tomorrow night, 10 o'clock. So lots of CONCACAF to look at, to keep an eye on. Lots of very interesting matches starting tonight. And we're getting ready for the biggest launch to a Major League Soccer season that this league has ever seen, year 25. 50,000 plus in Nashville. Chicharito making his debut Saturday afternoon in Houston. I would expect that's going to be a huge crowd. It's going to be a big weekend for soccer in the United States. I can't wait to get to that point. It's all bubbling up, John.
We approve. Looking forward to it. It's going to be fantastic. And keep sending your thoughts, everybody. We'll get to them on Thursday Thoughts. Timeline is full. Shout out to Karif, who's a part of Terminus Legion UK, who has reached out to us this morning as well. And he's ready for his 1 a.m. Sunday season opener in Nashville. Quick news out of the USL Championship. Friend of the show, Austin Deleuze, will be joining Dean Linke in the booth this season at North Carolina FC.
Excellent day. We'll be back tomorrow with lots of Overreaction Wednesday/Thursday, lots of Thursday thoughts, lots of stuff as we get ready for opening weekend, and we also look back at more CONCACAF CCL fever from tonight. Thanks for listening, y'all. Thanks for everybody who waved at us last night, said hi, listened to the radio broadcast, tweeted at us afterwards. The full-time report is now up. If you haven't heard that yet, it's available in your podcatchers. So thanks for consuming all of the stuff we're trying to put out there for y'all, and we'll be talking to you tomorrow. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata.